Good morning. My name is Delana Smith, and this is my Module 1 for EDL 853. Just a little bit about me. Good morning. This is my Module 1 personal introduction for EDL 853. My name is Delana Smith. I am currently serving as the District Curriculum Coordinator and Testing Coordinator for Frontenac USD 249. I am also the Pre-K-12 librarian at Frontenac. Previously, I've had the opportunity to teach 6th through 12 math, 7th and 8th language arts, as well as 7th grade computer applications. I have my bachelor's in ed with a major in math, my master's in reading as a reading specialist, my ed specialist in district leadership, and then most recently I just finished a master's of arts in ministry studies. So I've promised my husband that this master's is my last, and then we're going to focus on my professional career rather than being a lifelong student. When looking at TL1E, facilitating the use of those appropriate content-based learning materials and learning strategies, right now at Frontenac, those are currently left up to individual teachers. Although teachers are encouraged to have conversations with our special education teacher, this is not something that is mandated. There is not a system in place that would streamline the process for ensuring that there's compliance between the IEP and the materials that are being used. Rather, it is just left up to the professional discretion of the teachers. In the last 2 years, we have had a new elementary principal, so there has been increased administrative involvement at that building. However, just recently, I want to say March-ish, we began to have conversations with our junior high teachers about the need to ensure that we are upholding not only IEPs, but also students with SIP plans and those kinds of things to ensure that we're providing that appropriate instruction to those students, and yet we have not even begun to address the use of the appropriate materials in efforts to ensure that we're providing that instruction on an acceptable level for those students. We are encouraging the differentiated instruction. However, I think the most important thing for others to understand from the outside looking in is that we are just now seeing that SPED population begin to grow. When we look at our high school, this year is the largest year that they have had, and I believe we're at 6 students for the high school. So as our teachers begin to see increasing numbers, I feel like this is something that will obviously have to change. However, previously, they've had maybe 1 student in their class that was identified. So I think it's been something that was such a small population that it's been somewhat overlooked. In my personal experience, when I was in the classroom, we did have a larger SPED population. I was at a different district. I personally would ensure that I reviewed IEPs, and we also had an opportunity at the beginning of the year where the SPED teacher would then share out with all the classroom teachers that would have that student and move through the IEP to ensure that there was an understanding of the requirements for that student. Worked with the SPED teacher on a regular basis to gain an understanding of the modifications that needed to occur for each student. 1 year I even had the opportunity to co-teach a course with the SPED teacher. We had 9 of our 6th grade students that were identified, and so we put those, and there were 2 others who had been tested and borderline but did not qualify. And so we were able to group those 11 students together, and then her and I were able to co-teach. And through that experience, I was able to learn a great deal about stepping outside of that traditional math teacher box of lecture and examples, and just small things to make it easier for those students to gain an understanding and then be able to apply it to other similar problems. Most of the accommodations that I did on a more regular basis would have been things such as the no outline, shortened assignments, or continuous reteaching for that student. Very rarely did I feel that my SPED students had to be completely separated from my classroom students? And I think a lot of that came from after that co-teaching experience. I tried to change the way I taught in general for all students, because if it was good for my SPED students, it was good for all of my kids. I had the lower 2/3 of a specific grade level. So I just tried to incorporate those strategies in the regular classroom, which then allowed the SPED students to spend more time in the regular classroom and less time actually having to be pulled for instruction coming from a paraprofessional. And then finally, intentional in my professional development choices to ensure that I am continuing to gain strategies and insight regarding special education and ways to most effectively educate all of my SPED students. To improve our current practices, in my present position, I feel like I do have some opportunities as the curriculum coordinator to be in on professional development opportunities. So I feel like that is something that's very feasible for me to kind of push through and get some changes in place. Since this is a growing SPED population and our teachers are not as comfortable with it, I feel like professional development for them is critical so that they understand. This is not something that we need to give the parent the assignment and then send the students out of the room, which unfortunately has been something in the past 2 years that I've seen a great deal of. But rather, these are our lowest kiddos, and they need that teacher instruction more than others. So ensuring that we provide teacher strategies to address this in the most appropriate manner. As that curriculum coordinator, making sure that I'm providing the resources and facilitating those conversations so that our teachers are comfortable with what they have to be able to reach all students, and then pairing up those experts, those ones who are doing great things to reach those students, and providing opportunities for maybe some peer observations and then those conversations to then discuss out what it is that's occurring and why it's being so successful. Another opportunity that I feel like is critical, and a lot of times because of time we overlook, are the professional readings. There's a lot of great writing out there for us to read what has worked and what hasn't worked, whether it be more formal writings and textbooks and professional writings and journals, or if it's something more informal such as online PD or a Twitter conversation and chat that maybe our teachers jump in on. And then finally, coming back to that piece of individualized, student instruction, as we talk about those IPSs for all students, this is part of ensuring that our SPED students are receiving that individualized instruction in the manner that they need it. Funding is always an issue. However, we are in a very unique situation, so I feel like it is probably less of a limitation than it would be in many districts. As we do have a growing number of students, it does require quite a great deal more than it would have in the past just for those daily operational costs. The staffing is continuing to grow in our district quite a bit, which then requires more funds that way. However, we do have quite a few partnership opportunities in our area, educational funds, other businesses that are more than willing to match funds with us or just donate funds or items. So I think we need to be intentional about utilizing those resources to the best of our abilities. But ultimately, compliance, of course, is a top priority, and student success is greatly valued in this community. So it provides a unique opportunity to kind of push back those hindrances such as funding and look to see what is necessary to ensure student success and then be able to move forward from there. I'm looking forward to learning more about special education this semester and learning from each and every one of you guys. So thank you so much for your time and have a great day.